disabled people. I think of this word as being really rooted and central, fundamental. And you know, and I want to go there. Like, I don't want, I want to be able to create a space where people aren't afraid to say it. Because when we are saying things like handy capable, challenged, differently abled, experiencing, you know, suffering from, we are returning, be it intentionally or unintentionally, to a world where disability configures itself as less than, automatically in our language from the very beginning. You should always ask people what they want to be called, how they want to be identified. But to me, I identify as disabled. And it is to me the same as the difference between capital B Black, which I most certainly am, and lower B Black. Disability is capital D disability, identity, pride, politic, history, culture, and aesthetic in the work I make. I don't want to constantly live in a world where we reify ability. Talking about ability is like talking about whiteness when you want to talk about Blackness and race. And so to me, I stop. And I would just gonna catch myself. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna take a step, but actually what I should say is maybe I'm just gonna take a push on my wheelchair and roll on back out of it. But when I talk about disability, I stop. And I want to not center myself in the systems that are already configuring me as a queer disabled person of color, as someone who does not belong, and step into, push into, roll on into the world that centers these things together. So language matters. You do not have to identify as disabled. And excuse me, I'm on a run, I'm gonna stop. You do not have to identify as disabled. That's your right. But I want us to be able to find a way to talk a little bit about disability, because it is in the world that we live in a very particular way. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, and Alice, just as I got kind of discombobulated with our change, I forgot to introduce you and talk about how I met you. So I'm just going to back up just for 1 minute. No, I think it's important. I first met Alice as an artist in residence in Florida State at our Mansi program with Axis. And I was so struck by her artistry, her performance, her focus. You know, when you see a performer and they do that thing where the focus just, it's like, it's amazing. It's amazing. And so when I saw her, I connected with her and started having conversations. And we kept in touch over time and talked about our creative work. And then as I got to see Alice's choreographic work, which the things that first attracted me to her as an artist, the daring, the aesthetics, the challenge, the showing of effort, the showing of the full self, was for me the things that again made me so interested in wanting to have this conversation. And particularly, Alice, as you talked about the connection to when the enslavement of African people and disability, I think it's, I had not thought about that, and that was kind of a good place for me to kind of open my brain.
Can I kick in a little bit more on that for a second? Is that okay with people? Because it's going back to a not pretty past. You know, I'm so aware, and I often in our spaces, I have to say something to begin, like disability is not, sorry, race is not a disability. And you know, the reason I need to say that is because at the very beginning, race was formulated as disability. You know, the very first moments, the very first texts, the very first books, the medicalization of it all, where Blackness is produced as deformed or disabled whiteness. So I say now that race is not a disability, but the language of disability was used to produce race, to understand race, to formulate Blackness as distinct from whiteness. And so I want to make that moment clear. And then I want to actually talk about what happens, because that gives you a eugenicist science practice. That gives you the reason, a medical and scientific justification for the horrors that are embedded in our history. Slavery enabled the use of disability as a punishment, you know, for failure to perform, for failure to work, for daring to speak the truth, could earn disability as a punishment. And not just you, your family. So the connections between race and disability happen. They happen soon. You know, the idea that if you are a transacted human, your worth is calculated in your ability to work. And we see that now, the tying of value and labor, because the ability to participate in the market in that way means the necessity of hiding disability, our trauma, the stress, the chronic illness that comes with living within systemic racism. So you see what it is, kind of an entwining of threads of pathologization of our humanity, the denial and the hiding of impairment, a kind of ensuing shame about disability as it is transacted across whiteness and Blackness and capitalism and I mean, there is no other word for the murdering and torture of our bodies and minds for us to be able to exist in the system as it was and in the system as it is today. And yeah, I also want to call out something different. Disability exists. And we as a community and family care for each other differently within family systems, within community presences. You know that person? We care for that person. You know that family member? We care for that family member. We don't always name it disability, but disability is what it is. And so I think recognizing the intertwining strands of history and naming it might help us move to building better cultures that are welcoming, that know how to receive trauma, know how to receive mental health, know how to live in and around addiction, asthma, and all of the things that are part of our living in this world today. So I name it. I name it with a big D, I name it with a capital D, and I know the history, but I also know how it lives in us today and how we care for and build relationships, recognizing interdependence and our love for each other. Does that make any, here we are again, you know?
You're right on it, Alice. And you know, when I think about the hobbling, when people who either attempted to escape and were caught, and a body part might be cut off. I think about the experiments that were done on Black women, in particular, particularly on our wombs, but more. All of these things, and then this, because of our history of enslavement, not wanting to be diminished, if disability in the way that it has been seen in the past, then it's the last thing that you wanted to be identified with. And so therefore you start getting, you know, it feels like to me we get this on top of each other, this denial. And then that denial keeps us unable to seek the support, the identity, the community that would help us grow.
You know, it's odd, right? Because it is also not like the protections of the law apply equally, right? The ADA is 30 years old on July 26th. The Americans with Disabilities Act is 30 years old. But the experience of that act for people of color and for Black people in particular is very different. It is very, very different. And so, you know, there's a question of, you know, not just separating out disability itself, but understanding the intersectionality of it. the disability as lived by Black people, as people of color, is very different from the disability imagined by the protections in the legal system. And I think really strongly to police violence and the police brutality. And I look at how many of those who have died in some ways are disabled. And I think too, the recent district court cases in San Francisco for the District 9, which ruled that police did not have to think, to consider, whether someone might be disabled before they shot. And so I think about, those encounters, when police are sent for well-being checks or welfare checks to someone in crisis. And I think about the intersection of disability there. I think about the cases where people who are deaf or hard of hearing have died because they did not hear or understand the words, the command to stop. These things are so embedded into the system that the protections of the law are not available in the same ways. And so I don't want to say, look, you know what, we're in denial, and feel the shame. There is shame around internalized ableism, but there is also systemic racialized ableism that feeds and makes these things much more complicated than we too carry our shame. It's how we balance all of these things out. And so I sit in the place of knowing and not knowing. And but I recognize that we are in a place where the future is important. And I would love to talk a little bit about disability, our art, and our future. Can I take us there?
Yes,
because I'm watching the clock, and now that we're behind, and we're not going to keep the schedule, but can we talk about the
yeah, please.
I love us. I love us. And I want to recognize that I want to ask for change in us, for us, with us. I'm a dancer, and we are here because we are invested in some way in the performance arts and leadership and community organizing. And I see here in this space a recognition for the ASL interpreters, for whom I recognize I'm probably speaking too quickly. I will slow myself down. But I love us, and there are practices that connect us and give us the opportunity to relate to each other equitably in this work. When we make work with and for each other, and I think that is key, right? We don't make work necessarily to explain ourselves to the outside world. We make work that imagines us. If we are using texts in that work, can I hear you? Will I understand you? If you are singing, the words matter. How will we take on the responsibility of communicating ourselves to each other, right? And how if we are making work, and I am blind or have a visual impairment, how will I know where you are in space and what I am doing with you in space? How will I know your movement? We will grow together, I know that. But there's a way in which the art of what we do has to be built in, the access of the art of what we do has to be built into the relationship that we promise to each other, right? I am with you here now, and I need to take a moment to build that access in. I am a light-skinned, multiracial, multi-ethnic, capital B, Black woman. I'm wearing a cherry lilac lipstick with blue eyeliner and blue mascara and a light blue top, sitting in a white room with art attached to the wall behind me. We owe each other relationship and at least the time and the promise to figure out how we can exist in equitable relationship to each other, so that we can promise the art of what we do to each other. And I want that for us. There are ways to do that, and I can talk about the ways, but what I want to ask is, how are we in relationship to each other? And how do we get there with each other? That's it.
Well, that's a lot and a good lot. I think it's very important. And I realize again, I forgot to describe myself. I'm Black woman of a certain age, as they say. I have on bright blue glasses. My hair is shaved off. For those of you who know me with hair, with a lot of hair, I have on bright red lipstick and big brown silver earrings. And I have on my gray Urban Bushwomen hoodie t-shirt. Alice, this is, I want us to open up, and Stevie, I know that you were going to kind of guide us through this reflection from our community. Do I need to hold for a moment for the ASL interpreter?
We've actually already switched. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. All right. We'd like to open up some reflection, and Stevie is going to help curate that conversation or those reflections from our faculty, from what we're hearing. So Stevie, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Stevie.
Hi, how are you? Hey, everybody, let me introduce myself. My name is Stephanie Mckee Anderson. I'm from New Orleans. I have on these funky pink and blue earrings, and I have some black and gray cat eye glasses with my aqua blue Urban Bushwomen shirt. I'm really happy to be here. So happy to see people. Oh my God, it's Rachel Watts. Ah! This is so exciting. Hey, Caitlin. So look, we're gonna ask some questions. We've got some questions. And so what I would like everyone to do is, as you have questions, if you could please put those questions over in the chat, that would be fantastic. And just type them in the chat, and then I'm gonna pick some of those questions out, and then I'm gonna offer them to you. And please, as you're there, make sure you let me know who you're directing the question towards.
And could I start off with a question? Alice, there's certain words that you talked about: healing, recovery. Could you just talk a little bit about those words? And
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So here's the background on this. We all, Jawole and I, occasionally we get to like talk. And on this particular day, it was Sunday. It was a Sunday, and I was drinking my coffee, and we just spun it out. We just spun it out. And I want to talk about like this necessity. There are words that people use in academia, which is like compulsory able-bodiedness, or the necessity of a cure. And I want to be able to think a little bit about this for us as community, because these words mean different things, right? We are talking about a recovery world and a healing space. And we often mean these things without necessarily sort of breaking it out. And I find myself, and I'm going to be like straight on open here, I find myself triggered, right? Because I come into these spaces as a disabled person. There is no recovery for me. There is no cure for me. And I find healing spaces complicated because the focus is on wellness. And without careful nuance, without careful negotiation, healing and recovery are often practiced as erasure of disability. Come on now, just try a little harder. We got you. You can push through, you can hold on, you're a strong Black woman. And we often use that notion of strength to I don't have words for it, to actually deny the recognition that we need to reconfigure our spaces and re-examine our terminologies to actually to hold room for all of those things at once, so that I can be in a space of healing with you without needing to deny who I am as a disabled person, to recognize that cure and recovery and healing might look different, to recognize that I don't have to be in this space of constantly progressing to wellness, or if I am, that the wellness includes my disability in the first place, you know? To note that the notion of strength as a woman, as a Black woman, is the thing that keeps that I keep going with. I'm a strong one, but what if I didn't? You know?
Or couldn't.
Or couldn't. And won't.
Stevie, questions for?
I'm looking for some questions, but I don't see any yet. I'm going to ask everybody. I don't see any questions yet. Everything. I think, you know, you may have had a mic drop right there. So everybody's kind of taking it in. There's a lot of amens that are happening here. Everybody's taking that information in. I think that it is really, I think, just a testimony to this being something that we've never, like, you framed it in such a beautiful way, and one that we've never actually taken under consideration, right? So I think that for everyone, it's like, it's this moment of, wow, you know, we've been operating in this way for so long that everybody's kind of taking it in, but everybody is, I'm seeing a whole bunch of, let's see, there's a question.
Yeah, there was a question from Alicia.
Let's see where that is.
It's a little further up in the chat. And then I see another one from Oluyinka. Hi,
Okay,
Oluyinka.
Okay. Alicia, do you mind putting it in there again for me? Because I don't see it. I can't seem to find it.
I got it.
Okay.
We got I think 3 or 4 runnings of how do we think of wellness that includes disability? What is a version of wellness that encompasses disability? Yeah. So first of all, didn't mean to let it go. We're supposed to be having a conversation, but didn't mean to let it go. But here we are. You know, what is a version of wellness that encompasses disability? You know, there's no clear, straight answer that's a checklist of all of those, but I think it is a fundamental recognition that you can be disabled and well. And then the question is, what do you need to do to shape the space, so that that message doesn't get undercut, right? Or even maybe in a radical moment, you toss out the notion of well. You know, I feel like there's this thing where we're constantly fighting each other about, like, you're not well. Yes, I am. You're not well. Yes, I am. But what if we actually, you know, stay safe, stay healthy. Even in our greetings now, how are you? Are you well? Are you healthy? Have an undertone of questioning of, like, what if I am not healthy? What if I am past the immediate effects of the virus and I am still not what I was before? So I don't know. This is a complex moment for me. I think the word changes from space to space that I'm in. And I recognize that well changes from community to the community that I'm in. So I want to be able to think through, we need something. We need healing, maybe, but maybe not cure. We need recovery, but maybe not healing, or not recovery. But it's worth trying to figure out with all of us, with whom's in any given room, what these words mean to us, so that maybe we have a community definition that is okay for all of us as we move into different spaces. Maybe there isn't a single dictionary that works, but maybe there is a meaning that what it means for this community, this gathering, to figure out well and health and recovery together. Ooh, can I read one?
Yes, and I'm just doing a time check because I just asked, full transparency. I'm so lost on time. I had it all, plans. I had it all figured out, but it up, and
okay.
then
We're at six.
happens.
We're at 6 minutes, Jawole.
So we can take about 10 more minutes because I know we're over.
Yes.
So we take about 10 more minutes.
10.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So yes, Alice.
Margaret, you have hit the question that frames my work on stage. How do we balance encouraging the exploration of the potential of one's body that includes the spectrum of ability and disability that does not center a particular norm of ability? Woo! That's it. And because I do big work, I push my body into all of the limits, and I live in a space of where people say I have overcome my disability because I do work that extends my body beyond what they think is possible. I don't have the body. By way back in 2007, Jawole, when I met you, I do not have that body anymore because 11 years later, I have trained it, strengthened it, worked it. It has treated me well. It has betrayed me. We have grown and changed together. So I think there's a practice here, and I rely on the notion of practice, which is to understand what any particular body offers. And here's the controversial, to train the impairment itself. I train my disability. I don't deny it. I look at it and I ask, what do you have to bring to the world today? How can I expand you? How can I make you more you? And so my work is centering, is really centering the disability itself and developing it, not correcting it, but actually allowing it to become more of itself in the space.
Alice, when you said correcting, it's one of the things that, one of the holdovers from old school dance training is that where you get corrections. and a lot of work has been done to change that to cueing, that you cue people as opposed to give corrections. And I know for me, I'm still working through that language. I think we have developing, I see Courtney has said developing, and it's language that we have to particularly work through in the dance world. I think we have time for one more question. Stevie, you got it? Originally,
Yes.
Okay, so let me go back and tell you where. So originally, Alice, in the other platform, we weren't going to be able to see the chat. So therefore, so that we could focus, Stevie was going to be looking at the chat and feeding us questions. So it's still all good.
All right. So we have one here. There's a profound innovation and genius throughout the disabled community, especially in terms of organizing. Just a moment, everybody. Just a minute. Everybody's chatting and pushing it a little further down. Disabled community, especially in terms of organizing a mutual aid. Would love to hear Alice's thoughts on how that brilliance can lead us into the future, especially in this COVID and post-COVID world. It's Donia.
Thank you. I'm watching the chat and I'm seeing, this is thrilling to me. This is so thrilling to me. I want to be part of this community that does this work. I want to know 5 years from now, I want to be part of the world that you build, and I hope that I will be able to stay with you as you build it. You're thrilling, you're amazing. So what is the best way to, what is the brilliance? How is it going to take us forward? I laugh sometimes because we see these things in the New York Times about disabled people are hackers because the world has been so bad. We know how to accommodate and adapt and build new worlds. It's sort of without the rest of the non-disabled world knowing. I want a fundamental re-reckoning with the structures around which we build our lives. So I sat in on a call in which people were imagining a post-COVID dance world in which people biked to the studio in order to avoid using public transportation and or take an Uber. And I'm like, whew, I'm not getting on my bike anytime soon, and Uber is inaccessible. I want a world in which we bring the knowledge of the disability community into the ways in which we are reimagining every structure by which we live. And I'm going to give a naive example. And I actually hate this example, but it makes some sense to me. Disabled activists threw themselves on subway tracks in order to make the subway accessible. Now everyone uses the elevators without even thinking or knowing the history. We in the disability community have knowledge and expertise that could help transform the very structures by which we live. And if it works for us, as they say in disaster planning, which they did not do in Katrina, if they had planned to get the disabled people out, everyone would have been safe. Not everyone, but a number of people, more people would have been safe. So I want to be able to use the knowledge that we have in community to change the structures by which we live. Just that.
But, you're throwing down the gauntlet, and I think we're all going to figure out all the different ways that we can take on the challenge and take up the challenge, because I think it's important. And it's one of the reasons I wanted you to, in our private conversations, that I felt like were just so powerful. And again, that calling out from a place of love, from the place that I experienced in the Black community, that something can be better and it needs attention to it. So I, know that everyone, this is a beginning. And so while we, I could take 10 hours here in these conversations, that this is a beginning. And there are many people in the disability justice community, Alice, who I see someone asking for your contact. And I know that one of the things, which is great, and one of the things that happens after something on racism, and I know PSAB, is suddenly everybody wants, to the one person to try to solve everything. And we know that there are a lot of people that can be called upon, and there are a lot of people that need to be called upon who can bring clarity to this. So maybe one of the things that we can do is put together some kind of resource list. Dance USA might have one. Dance NYC might have one. We can check in with them to see. But I just want to thank you. And I got a thing to check my text, but because I accidentally have my microphone on, what it did, it just recorded me. Because Catherine, you get in that recording.
You're fine, Jawole. I was just informed that everybody saw me picking in my teeth and talking to my dog. So I don't think it gets any worse than that. I just became my mother.
No. So you know what? This is where we were. Things, the makeup, all of the ways that we appeared and showed up, we are just now showing up in a really honest place. When I've been asked to moderate, I said, I don't know who you're going to get. You might get me on a good day. You might get me on a day struggling from moment to moment to make sense of the reality. And I can't guarantee you who will show up. I know my history and all of that. And I think that's the recognition of the world that we're in. So Alice, I want to thank you so very much. We know there's more to come, and we know that you have creative work that you're working on, and that we invite people to go to your website, Alice Sheppard, Kinetic Light, to see this beautiful website and the work that is coming. So I'm not even sure what's supposed to happen next, but somebody will tell me. But Alice, Thank you, and I love you.
Thank you,
love
Jawole.
love you.
Thank you for everything. And thank you, all of you, for listening and sharing the space with me. We got this. We got this. Ciao.
Thank you so much, Jawole and Alice. That was amazing. It was much needed. And I think everyone has just been so captivated by this conversation. Shannon Judson Johnson is going to introduce the next portion of our evening together. Shannon, where you at, girl?
I'm right here.
Jawole, you're on mute. What you saying, Jawole?
Are we in the public or the SLI part?
I'm actually gonna check on that. Yep. But you know what? You know what, Jawole? That's why you sitting here, girl. That's what's up. Let me check in with Hannah.
And it may not even matter. I just didn't know.
We are in the public, it says.
And that's okay. We are in the public. I think we're streaming.
Okay.
The embodied history, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Cool.
Yes, we are still live. They're going to end after embodied history. Cool. So
Okay, wonderful.
thanks for checking, Jawole. Shannon, I see you. You ready? I'm gonna hand it off.
I'm here. I'm going back to my wobble. I'm full and stretching. I'm Shannon Judson Johnson. I am in my living room / dining room / computer room / now turned dance studio. I am a Black woman, dark brown skin. My hair is 2-strand twist, and I'm wearing some really fly earrings that are made from jean and kente cloth created by Courtney Cook, who's up on the screen somewhere. I'd like to share with you all, and many of you have actually been introduced to the unique way that Urban Bushwoman shares how we hold our history. And that holding is sharing, it's learning, it's how we understand our lineage, our practice, our methodologies, and it's how we pass it on. Now, the story of this, as I understand it, so Jawole, you can go like this and go like this if I say something crazy, is that Jawole was on a panel at one point with some folks, as I've heard you describe them as men of long wind. And so the conversation's going around and dragging around, and it finally circles around to Jawole. And it's a moment of noticing and mercy on everyone in the room. And she's like, people can't take no more words right now. And so Jawole starts to tell of Urban Bushwoman's work, the process, the thinking, the practices, by going into it through her first language. That becomes something. And it's like, okay, this is something. That something is then cultivated and crafted and shaped into what is now a way to tell our stories. I largely want to give big up my sister, who's also on the screen, who was at the time serving as Urban Bushwoman's Director of Education and Community Engagement Programming, Maria Bauman-Morales, who did a lot of the questioning and having conversations to shape this into now what is now a breathing archive. And it's something that lives with all of our bold facilitators, builders, organizers, and leaders through dance. It's how we teach and retell our story. It's a story that in the retelling of it, that we examine it and we add to it. And now we are offering it to you. Maybe you're seeing it for the first time, maybe you're seeing it again. And as you experience the telling of the history by Maria Bauman-Morales, I invite you to notice what you notice, feel what you feel, take in the impressions, and we'll come back and meet and chat about it afterwards.
And folks ask me, well, wait a second, so you're a touring and performing dance company, you're making works, you're rehearsing in the studio, but then you're also working in community and making dances with folks and teaching classes and that kind of thing. How do those two things connect? So I'm here to tell you. Urban Bushwomen was founded in 19 1984. By that big queen you just saw, Jawole, Willa, Zollar. When the company first started dancing and doing their thing, they would be touring and performing city to city, coast to coast, even internationally. They would use the body to really just tell stories. They were telling stories that were culturally rooted, you know, going for what they knew. Things were really good, except when that dance company would look out into the crowd, they wouldn't see folks who looked like them. Women, people of color, working class folk. Well, if you know us, you know Urban Bush Women knows how to solve a problem. They said, all right, we'll make some invitations. It might be at a fish fry. Thank y'all for this food. Did you know we have a show Friday night? Would you like to come? All right, cool. It could be when they were teaching a master class, dancing with folks. They would say, hey, it has been such a pleasure dancing with you. We got a show Friday night. Would you like to come? Cool. Well, you know, presenters like this a lot. They said, oh, y'all are doing outreach. Something felt really strange about this. It seemed like a assumed powerful center reaching out, but really down, to an assumed less powerful fringe, minority, vulnerable population, at risk, oh, empowerment zone. Now you know that's not how Urban Bush Women rolls. So we're still touring and performing and doing our dances. Touring coast to coast, city to city. But let's fast forward a little bit. Woo! All right, now it's 1987. Urban Bush Women is invited to the American Festival Project. Lots of colleagues are there, like Roadside Theater, Liz Lerman, Traveling Jewish Theater, and others. These folks are interested in reciprocity, storytelling that has to do with listening, being culturally rooted. So Urban Bush Women is starting to get some colleagues walking this walk with us. So of course, we're still dancing, but we're also thinking about community engagement. That will become community organizing later. So you know, we're done with that outreach model. Fast forward again. Now it's 1990. We're invited to New Orleans, Louisiana for 1, 2, 3 months of community engagement. We work with lots of different groups. We're doing our dances, we're telling stories, but we're also sharing, listening. And together, we build a community engagement culminating performance. That one was based on the youth because that's what folks in New Orleans were interested in. Imagine. When we're in New Orleans, we get lots of feedback. Folks say, wow, the way y'all entered community made a lot of sense. Again, that company did it with reciprocity, respect, listening. So this idea of entering community starts to be a big part of our methodology. Eventually we add building community. But you know, we're still touring. We go place to place, city to city. So we also add exiting community. Our methodology gets stronger. Entering, building, and exiting community. All right, y'all, so we're starting to really feel ourselves. We're dancing. We got this community engagement thing going on. But what happens? Turnover. The dancers move on. Whoa, that's okay, but now what about our methodology we've been working on? Well, actually, a part of the story started right here in Tallahassee, Florida, the Summer Leadership Institute. The Summer Leadership Institute began in 1997 under the Tallahassee sun. It became a house for all of our dance work, community engagement, including understanding and undoing racism, teaching dance in ways that affirm humanity. And those colleagues from American Festival Project, but also around the country and the world, shared their own methodology. And we did start coming into community organizing. What? Oh, you said, is the Summer Leadership Institute still going? Yeah. I'll see you in New Orleans, July 25th to August 3rd, this summer. It's where we train our own company members, as well as dancers and other folks who are interested in learning about art making and community engagement. What's going on now? Y'all ask a lot of questions. Well, we're still touring, you know that. We're still performing. We're telling those dances that are culturally rooted. In addition, we got that community organizing thing going, and it's all under one house. And that house is bold builders, organizers, and leaders through dance. Through bold, we've got lots of facilitators who offer community engagement residencies just like that one in New Orleans. We're walking our walk, y'all, around equity, dance, really going for what we know in communities with folks based on a sense of listening and reciprocity. So you know, a lot of times people will ask us, what's going on with urban bush women? And you know what we say? Well, what's going on with you?
Well, 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 well,
Hey.
well. Come on now. Let's go, right? So great to see you moving, Maria.
Thank you. Shout out to the SLI community. I had literally no idea that video was being shared tonight. I'll say this. Shout out to Jawole for being the visionary that made any of that possible. And shout out to all the many, many, many brothers and sisters and siblings and gender nonconforming folks who have held that embodied history, not just me. Shout out to us all. And thank you for the surprise.